Alright, so welcome to how to use the bridge egg, and the bridge egg is found in the utility section and is the egg icon. It costs 2 emeralds in solos and doubles and 1 emerald in 3s and 4s. Its lore is this egg creates a bridge in its trail after being thrown. This item works well with everything, but it works well with potions and pop-up towers especially. To start off with the basics, just right click the bridge egg in your hand while facing towards the place you like to go to. To go a little deeper, you should pretty much always throw your egg while looking slightly upwards if you're trying to get somewhere using it. This makes it so that if your egg doesn't go all the way, it may put you in range for a parkour jump, or at the very least, it will give you some high ground to work off of. Personally, I usually use the bridge egg for a flank attack, in which I tell my teammate to distract the opposing team from one angle while I approach from another, and then throw a bridge egg to quickly get over. If your opponents are not aware of their surroundings, this maneuver can easily grant you access to their bed and potentially allow you to wipe that team right there. The bridge egg is also very useful for getting close to bow spammers or just campers in general. If you use the bridge egg in conjunction with pop-up towers, it makes it very difficult for the camper to stop you from getting closer, since you can use the pop-up towers to block fireballs and to gain high ground quickly after you throw the bridge egg towards them. So I don't know how many players are aware of this, but if you throw the bridge egg at a player, it actually deals knockback to them. If you aren't too into Minecraft 1.8 PvP, then let me explain why this can give you such a big advantage in a fight. By throwing the egg at a player while you're in the heat of combat, you push them back, which allows you to pull off combos more easily, since they'll be put slightly into the air from the projectile, which will give you slightly more reach. I know this seems great and all, but I have to remind you that these eggs don't exactly come cheap. Since they cost emeralds, it makes them harder to obtain in the first place, and most of the time you'd rather use the emeralds to buy potions instead, or something else. I would advise using the bridge egg to assist you in combat only if you absolutely have to win the fight in order to progress further into the game. Otherwise, the bridge egg could be saved for something else that may help you later in the long run. You can also use this to knock players off bridges, but I don't really advise doing that unless you're hunting out the last player in the game, since it would be kind of a waste of emeralds otherwise. If you're in a long chase around the map with the person who is a final kill, you could use the bridge egg to cut them off, or as a way to quickly get over to them while they're buying stuff from a shopkeeper. This puts a lot of pressure onto the runner, since you are coming when they least expect it. Having multiple bridge eggs while you're in pursuit gives you an even bigger edge over them, since it allows you to get away with a few mistakes while still keeping the pressure, and it allows you to chase for even further distances if your first bridge egg wasn't enough. Having a teammate with you to chase them from another angle would also make it even more difficult for the runner to get away, since it cuts off exit options for the runner. I advise having at least one person to chase them on foot from behind, while the other is at middle with a bridge egg or two who is ready to cut them off at the moment's notice. Middle is a very advantageous spot for this tactic, but there are times where the runner has control in middle, which could make things tricky if there is more than one bridge there already. If the runner has control of the middle and there are multiple exits from there to other bases, then what I advise doing is chasing on foot first and only revealing your bridge eggs when they've backed themselves into a corner. A prime example of this would be if your opponent decides to run to the diamond generator, since there's a bridge there to another base. What you can do from there, if you have a teammate, is to have one teammate chase on foot behind them while you throw a bridge egg from mid towards the base they're trying to get to. If you can get to that base before the runner can, then they are forced to play defensive or fight you in order to get away. If you want a very expensive but very effective option to break a team's bed, you could buy a bridge egg with invis and jump potions along with TNT, fireballs, and a lot of blocks to create the ultimate bed breaking loadout that I hear many people use in ranked bed wars. To pull off this tactic, start off by drinking your potions, then jumping up and throwing the bridge egg towards the base you would like to go to. And when you reach the base, drop down and place the TNT, then quickly jump up while placing a tower of blocks below you. Then throw a fireball down to clear off any players standing on the bed defense after the TNT went off, and then repeat the process of using TNT, blocks, and fireballs until the bed is exposed. This tactic, if pulled off correctly, is extremely effective at blowing through big bed defenses, and even if your opponent has a glass layer, you just smash through it after you blast your opponent's back with your fireballs, and then just place another TNT down. The potions make it very difficult to hit you, and the bridge egg gives you fast access to the opponent's base. The only way to counter this tactic is by having a obsidian bed defense, but since that isn't allowed in the ranked matches, it's clear to see why it's most popular there. Okay, so this one is borderline stupid, I'll admit, But if you really want to have a funny moment, you could throw a bridge egg at TNT droppers to potentially knock them off their high ground. This allows you to have a better position against your attackers, but it doesn't stop the attackers from placing the TNT down before they die anyway, and having the teammate that you didn't knock down jump after the TNT explodes and break your bed anyway. A jump potion would probably serve you better in that situation since you could use it to achieve a simpler effect, but it would be funnier to use a bridge egg since your opponents will likely not see it coming. If your opponents decide to drop a TNT onto your bed, then you can use the bridge egg as a way to catch it before it can do any damage. This could be extremely beneficial, especially if you can catch a TNT early on, since the opposing team could potentially be put into range of their own TNT. However, keep in mind that pop-up towers achieve largely the same thing and are easier to obtain since they cost 24 iron. While the bridge egg could be used more quickly and precisely, the pop-up tower isn't that much slower and covers a much larger radius than the bridge egg. I would advise saving those emeralds for something else, since they could be crucial for your endgame. If you're back into a corner and there are no more bridges that you can cross, what you can do is throw a bridge egg towards another island or base to potentially get away. Combine this with a fireball jump to quickly get on top of your new bridge makes it so that you don't have to risk being hit by your opponent while trying to get on top of your bridge. If your bridge egg didn't make it all the way, then you can use a TNT or fireball to launch you across the remaining gap if you have to. Of course, if you need to cross longer distances, having multiple bridge eggs would be hugely advantageous. Using ladders or water buckets could also benefit you too if you wish to take no fall damage. If your opponent has fireballs or a bow to try and stop your escape, you can use pop-up towers to try and block them while trying to cross your bridge. All of this combined gives you a lot of options to go for when you really should have none at all. You pretty much always want to throw your bridge egg at a slight upward angle so that it creates an arc that makes parkour jumps easier and grants you the high ground. This item works well in all game modes. In solos and doubles, buying a bridge egg is not a common strategy since you could use those 2 emeralds for a couple of jump potions or an invis potion. However, when used appropriately, it can be a pretty effective option when you pretty much tried everything else. I think the reason it's 2 emeralds instead of 1 in solos and doubles is for balancing purposes, since otherwise you could just grab 4 bridge eggs at the start of the game if you rush middle and destroy half the teams while they're fighting another one. With that in mind, I think it makes sense for the way things are right now, because otherwise it would just be too overwhelming in those game modes. In 3s and 4s, I feel that it could be extremely effective because of its low price, but it is set back because nearly every team rushes middle at the start of the game, so it becomes really unnecessary unless you want to go for a flank. However, with more players in those game modes, it becomes harder to flank since there are more people available to defend and look out for their team. Taking all of this in, I think it's clear to see why it's not too popular in the current casual Bedwars meta. Overall, this item is very flexible and underrated in my opinion. It gives you a lot of options to branch off of, and it just allows for some interesting gameplay all around. I would definitely like to see more people try this item out and see what they can do with it. As one of the cheapest things you could buy for your emeralds, it does a pretty good job with the price. Personally, I find it more effective as an offensive and evasive tool, since those are where it gets its most consistent results. I guarantee that you can make this item work with your current game plan, so feel free to try it and see how it can fit into your own playstyle. Alright, so that's it for this episode of How to Use, and don't forget to vote in the comments for what item you want to see next. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to share it with your friends so they can see it too. Alright, that's it for me. Don't stop gaming, guys. Peace out.